Imani Brooks stepped off the yellow school bus and onto the sidewalk in front of Brooklyn High with quiet determination. A new senior transferring from Chicago, she wasn't here to make friends, to fit in, or to stand out. She was simply here to finish her final year, earn her diploma, and move on. Years of bouncing between schools had taught her one critical rule of survival: stay invisible. Keep your head down, avoid drama, and never give people a reason to target you. As a young black girl entering a predominantly white school, Imani understood that every glance her way carried weight, judgment, curiosity, and assumptions about who she was and what she might become. But she had no interest in challenging anyone's perceptions. Her backpack slung casually over one shoulder and her expression unreadable, Imani moved through the crowded hallways with quiet precision, scanning for her locker while ignoring the subtle stares and hushed whispers. She had seen this pattern before. New faces always drew attention, but for her, it was more than novelty, it was scrutiny. Was she loud? Was she trouble? Was she one of those girls? But Imani wasn't concerned. She had survived tougher environments than this. The halls of Brooklyn High might have their own unspoken rules and social hierarchies, but she had mastered the art of staying on the outside. She wasn't here to be noticed. She was here to endure, graduate, and disappear. That was the plan, until someone decided to test her silence. The conflict began before Imani Brooks even had a chance to find her footing. In her first week at Brooklyn High, the whispers had barely settled when Jessica Carter, the school's unofficial queen bee, set her sights on the quiet new girl from Chicago. Jessica wasn't just popular, she ruled the school's social structure with calculated cruelty. Backed by her loyal followers Monica and Ava, and the intimidating presence of her older brother Ryan and his cocky friend Trey. From the moment she noticed Imani's calm demeanor and refusal to seek attention, Jessica felt something unsettling, an unpredictable energy that she couldn't categorize or control. That made Imani dangerous in Jessica's world. So, she struck first. It began with mocking laughter and snide remarks in the cafeteria, with Jessica leading the charge as her clique piled on. They called her stuck up, questioned her intelligence, and tried to humiliate her with spilled drinks and public embarrassment. Yet Imani didn't react. She didn't cry, argue, or even look angry. She remained calm, composed, and silent, and that silence made Jessica furious. To a girl like Jessica, power came from fear, and Imani's refusal to submit challenged the very foundation of that power. Day after day, the bullying escalated. In gym class, Imani was shoved and blocked, the ball stolen from her with every pass. Trey laughed loudly, Ryan smirked, and Monica and Ava bumped her with every chance they got. But still, Imani didn't flinch. She didn't push back or even raise her voice. If anything, she seemed bored by the entire charade, her control unshaken. This wasn't the response Jessica was used to. Most students either begged for mercy or lashed out, playing into her hands. But Imani's stillness, her unreadable gaze, and the way she simply refused to give Jessica any power, it was infuriating. And slowly, without anyone realizing, the game began to shift. The crowd wasn't just laughing anymore, they were starting to wonder who Imani really was. As the days passed, the pressure on Imani Brooks only grew more intense. Her quiet strength, what the others mistook at first for shyness, was beginning to unnerve those who tried to break her. Jessica Carter, no longer amused by her own games, pushed harder. She couldn't stand how Imani never reacted, never gave her the satisfaction of fear or anger. The silent girl was supposed to crack under pressure, but instead she remained perfectly calm, and that calmness was starting to feel like defiance. So the attacks became more physical. In gym class, Monica and Ava made sure to accidentally bump into Imani every chance they got. Elbows to the ribs, shoves during drills, subtle but deliberate. Ryan, cocky and sure of his strength, played basketball like it was a contact sport just for her, knocking her down without consequence. Trey laughed loudly with each fall, his phone always ready to record the spectacle. Still, Imani didn't respond. She got back up, dusted herself off, and moved on like nothing happened. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was composure. And that composure became a mirror, reflecting just how desperate and childish Jessica's group looked. Their power came from spectacle, from the reaction they provoked. Without one, they were just bullies yelling into the void. Whispers began to spread throughout the school. She doesn't flinch. She didn't even look mad. Students who once laughed with Jessica now watched Imani with growing curiosity, even respect. What kind of girl didn't just take abuse, but made it feel pointless? Jessica could feel her grip on the school slipping, and that terrified her more than anything Imani had done. Because for the first time, she wasn't in control. And for someone like Jessica Carter, that was the most dangerous threat of all. After days of relentless provocation, Imani Brooks knew the confrontation was inevitable. Though she had walked away from every insult and shove with quiet dignity, it was clear now Jessica and her crew weren't going to stop. That evening she sat at the kitchen table, her dinner untouched, while her father, Darius Brooks, moved quietly in the background. A former professional fighter turned trainer, Darius knew his daughter better than anyone. He didn't need to ask what had happened. He could see it in the way her shoulders tensed, in the storm behind her calm eyes. When he finally asked, "Tell me," Imani hesitated before admitting the truth. She didn't want to fight, but she didn't want to be seen as weak either. Darius listened in silence, his gaze steady. Then, in a voice both calm and firm, he reminded her of something he had taught her long ago. She had been trained to defend, not to destroy. But he also warned her, people like Jessica only stop when given a reason to. Imani had spent years honing her body and mind inside her father's gym. Since childhood, she had sparred with adults twice her size, learned discipline, restraint, and strategy, but she also knew the cost of losing control. A single fight had once changed her life, forced a move, and led to the promise that she would never let that side of her out again. Yet now, walking away only seemed to feed the fire. Her father looked her in the eyes and said something that stayed with her. "You don't start fights, Imani, but you finish them." That night, she didn't sleep. Her thoughts swirled with memories, instincts, and warnings. But one thing became clear. This wasn't just about standing her ground. It was about ending something that refused to end on its own. And when the moment came, she wouldn't fight for pride, revenge, or attention. She would fight with purpose, to finish it clean and final. The final bell rang, and with it came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Whispers buzzed through the halls of Brooklyn High like static. After school, behind the gym. It wasn't a rumor anymore. It was a scheduled event. Jessica Carter had made sure of that. Her plan was simple. Humiliate Imani once and for all, with no teachers, no cameras, just a crowd, a lesson, and her throne reaffirmed. But Imani wasn't walking into the trap unaware. She felt the shift the moment she arrived that morning. The way people looked at her, some curious, some nervous, some almost admiring. She didn't flinch. She knew what was coming, and she was ready. When she stepped behind the gym, they were already waiting. Jessica stood in the center like a self-appointed queen, flanked by Monica, Ava, Ryan, and Trey, who loomed with smug confidence. Around them, students had formed a loose circle, phones in hand, voices hushed in anticipation. Imani didn't blink. She approached calmly, her face unreadable. Jessica smirking through the first words, sarcastic, biting, but Imani cut through it with a single, quiet line. "I'm here to warn you." The tension cracked, Jessica scoffed, but there was hesitation in her eyes. Then Ryan stepped in to handle it. He was twice her size. He never stood a chance. In one swift, precise motion, Imani dropped him to the pavement. Trey followed, only to find himself twisted into a hold he couldn't escape. The crowd gasped. The power dynamic shattered. Imani never raised her voice. She didn't gloat. She simply stood there, composed, unmoved, commanding the silence. When she looked at Jessica and asked, "Do you still think I was running?" The question wasn't rhetorical. It was a reckoning. For the first time, Jessica Carter wasn't feared. She was small, and everyone saw it. Jessica Carter had always ruled Brooklyn High without question. Her words shaped reputations, her approval granted status, and her presence alone could silence a room. But now she stood in the center of a silent crowd, breath shallow, pride crumbling, and power slipping through her fingers like sand. Imani Brooks hadn't just defended herself. She had dismantled Jessica's reign without raising her voice, without boasting, without needing anyone's validation. After dropping Ryan and disarming Trey, she hadn't celebrated, she hadn't claimed the spotlight, she had simply turned her back and walked away, unbothered. That was the part Jessica couldn't stomach, the dismissal, because for Jessica, power had always been about being seen, about controlling the narrative. But Imani didn't need a narrative. She didn't care who watched. She wasn't trying to take Jessica's place. She didn't even want it. That made her even more terrifying. As Imani walked off, calm and collected, the silence behind her wasn't filled with awe. It was filled with realization. Jessica Carter had lost, and not just the fight. She had lost control, fear, and status. Monica and Ava, her ever-loyal shadows, stood quietly, uncertain for the first time. Ryan was still on the ground, groaning. Trey avoided everyone's gaze. And the crowd? They weren't cheering for Jessica anymore. They were whispering about Imani, the girl who never asked for attention, but earned everyone's respect. Later, in the cafeteria, Jessica sat in her usual spot, but the power around her was gone. Students passed her by, but no one stopped, no one hung on her words. Across the room, Imani ate lunch alone, just like before. But this time, heads turned in her direction, with curiosity, with reverence, with a quiet kind of admiration. And that stung more than any blow. Because Jessica hadn't just been beaten, she had been forgotten, and Imani hadn't needed to win a crown to dethrone a queen. She just had to show up, stand firm, and walk away. The next morning, Brooklyn High felt different. The hallways, once echoing with Jessica Carter's name and presence, now carried a different kind of energy, one that whispered, Imani Brooks. Jessica walked through the corridors with her head held high, trying to maintain the illusion of control, her designer bag swinging over her shoulder. But the weight of the shift was unmistakable. The stares she used to command now slid past her. Whispers no longer centered around her outfits or drama, but around the girl who had, without yelling or boasting, changed everything. Imani didn't need a crowd. She didn't need followers or approval. She wasn't trying to fit in or stand out. Yet students watched her like she carried a gravity they couldn't explain. As Jessica sat at her usual table during lunch, she noticed it too. Monica and Ava were unusually quiet, avoiding eye contact, their loyalty shaken. Ryan and Trey, still bruised from the day before, were more distant than ever. No one laughed. No one echoed her words. Power had slipped away and she couldn't pull it back. Across the cafeteria, Imani sat alone, calmly eating her food, her posture as composed as always. But now, students passed by and nodded in respect. A few hesitated nearby, unsure whether to join her. Even some from the basketball team gave subtle acknowledgments. Imani hadn't changed. She still didn't chase attention, but now she didn't have to. Respect had found her. Meanwhile, Jessica was unraveling. Her control over the school had never been questioned, until now. What made it worse was that Imani wasn't even trying to take anything from her. She wasn't seeking the spotlight. She wasn't seeking revenge. She had simply shown everyone that fear doesn't equal respect, and silence doesn't equal weakness. And in doing so, she had rewritten the rules Jessica once lived by. Without saying a word, Imani had become the new center of gravity. Life often teaches us that true strength doesn't lie in loud voices or quick tempers, but in calm resilience and silent conviction. Imani's story is a reminder that dignity, patience, and self-control are not signs of weakness, they are signs of wisdom. In a world that frequently rewards those who shout the loudest or act the boldest, it's easy to forget the power of stillness, of choosing not to react, but sometimes it takes more courage to walk away than to fight back. And when one must stand their ground, let it be with purpose, not pride. The lesson here is timeless. You don't have to seek validation from others to know your worth. Power built on fear is fragile. True respect comes not from dominance, but from integrity. Whether you're young or old, there will always be moments when you're tested, not just by others, but by your own principle. In those moments, remember, strength guided by wisdom leaves a far deeper impact than any show of force. We may not control how others treat us, but we always control how we respond. And sometimes, the greatest victory is simply holding on to who you are.